Hey everybody, and welcome to another JASP tutorial. In this one, we are going to continue our power module series of looking at the how to use the power module for the various tests. So in this one, we are going to do the Z test, the one sample Z test. Now to get the power module, which is right here, good old the curves, you got to get yourself some 0.17.2. No power module without at least that. Now the 0.1 here is a hot fix, so definitely keep an eye on that if you're running into some errors. So let's jump into the power module here, waiting for initialization of a module. All right, let's change the test to a one sample Z test and close these plots and data generation. Now those are gone over in my previous overview video of this module. In this one, we're only talking about one sample t-test power module. Now, how you use power analyses modules is very simple. There's 4 pieces of information that we need. 1, sample size. Well, these are the 4 pieces right here, right? Okay, so we need effect size, we need a power, we need a type 1 error rate, or alpha, and then we need a sample size. So those are the 4 things. These 4 bits of information all work together. They're all connected, okay? In null hypothesis statistical testing, all connected. So if we know 3 of the things, then we can find out the 4th algebraically. Okay, all of that stuff is happening beneath the hood here, so you don't need to worry about knowing how it's happening. You just need to plug in the numbers that you know. And so in this particular case, we're going to start here with what I think is the most important and useful aspect of a power analysis module like this, which is an a priori power analysis. What we are looking for before we start measuring something. And so what is that we're looking for before we start measuring? How many people we need to measure. How many people we need to measure. So if we know what effect size we're looking for, okay, in this case, it's going to be Cohen's D, okay? If we know what kind of power we want, and if we know the alpha, our type 1 error rate, we kind of do. We know those things and how they're being made. We know what is going on in those 3 things because we can find them or we can just choose them. And this will tell us how many people we need to measure. Now, for a one sample Z test, you're going to find something very similar to a one sample T test. So this video and the previous one are fairly similar in their outcomes because the only thing that's different between a one sample Z test and a one sample T test is knowledge of the population standard deviation. That's the only thing that's different between the two. And so you're going to see a lot of things that are very similar. Now, one thing to note between a one sample T test and a one sample Z test is you're going to need less people for a one sample Z test because you already know the population standard deviation. This is going to come out to a handful of people. At this level, it's only a difference of 1. So if you looked at my other video on one sample T test, then you'll know 44 was the base in this initial setup. 44 was what we needed. 43 is what we need here, right? So there's a little bit of difference in the calculations, and that is because of what Z and T are, okay? So let's say we want to, we have 0.9 power, alpha is 0.05. I don't recommend changing that at all. And our Cohen's D is by default at 0.5, which is where they leave you at. And now if you are looking for a larger effect or a smaller effect, that's going to change what you've got here. Let's change this to 0.8 because I like giving my participants, I like giving my students the values that are used conventionally. Now 0.9 is a good power to strive for, but I usually just tell them 0.8 is fine. 0.8 is absolutely fine. And so let's see what happens if we go from 0.9 to 0.8 without changing anything else. Now leave your guess in the comments below. Is it going to go higher, N, or is it going to go lower than 43? Drop your guesses after you pause the video and then play to see if you were right. All right, so let's hit tab to the next one and see what happens. Oh yeah, we only need 32. Look at that, it went down. And that is because if you reduce the amount of power in a statistic, then you'll only need you need a handful less than what it was before because you're more willing to miss the effect. You're more willing to miss the effect. Okay. Now, if we change this to a smaller effect, you're going to need more people to find that effect. Imagine a haystack with a needle in it, and you're looking for that needle represents the effect. So 0.5 is a medium effect size. It's a smaller haystack. You need fewer people to find that needle. Well, if we are looking for a needle and we're saying that it's a smaller effect, well, the needle is going to stay the same size, but the haystack is going to get a lot bigger. Okay. So that means you're going to need more people to sift through that haystack to find that needle. So let's see what happens when we go to what Cohen says is a small effect for D, which is 0.2. Everything else staying the same. Drop your guesses, pause the video, drop your guesses in the comments to see how many more we need. We're going from 32 for a 0.5 Cohen's D See how many we need for 0.2. 197. Oh boy, 197. So we need so many more people to find because that effect is a lot smaller, right? It's a lot smaller. So we need that many more people, even just an 80, even just 0.8 power, 80% power. If we change this to 0.9 to where it was when we first started, what JASP believes as the default, you end up with, let's go 197. Now we want to be more accurate, right? We don't want to miss it. So we need more people to make sure that we don't miss it. How many more people? 263. So, 60 more people to make sure that we prevent. And you can see how this lines up by looking at this curve, which is really frustrating, but it makes sense. 10's over here. So you really need a lot of people to get this yellow area, right? So that's how you do an a priori power analysis. Now, there are two other ways because we can just remove one of the others and still have 3 bits of information to calculate the fourth, right? So we can do a post-hoc power analysis or an effect size calculation. So let's do a post-hoc power analysis. This tells us how much power we had in our already measured situation of our sample, doing a one sample Z test, right? So let's say our effect size that we're looking for is 0.2, right? Very, very small, okay? This is grayed out because that's what we're calculating. And we had a sample size of 20. Remember, we needed 263. So if you've got a sample size of 20, you're in this lighter purple violet band here, right? Which is over here. That's not great, right? That's not great. And if we look at the calculation here, 0.145, we're likely going to miss that needle, right? We're likely going to miss that needle. If we only had 20 people in a certain amount of time to find the needle, giant haystack, everyone's going to give up. They're going to be like, I can't find it, Dr. Swan. I can't find it. Please help me. Please help me. Okay. So that's what we're doing with this. Okay. That's what the other thing that you can do is calculate the effect size Cohen's D for Z, which is typical. You can calculate D to see how far apart. Z is represented in standard deviation, standard units anyways. So telling how far apart a Z, a population parameter is from a sample estimate, use D for that, right? See how far apart they are. And if we leave that alone, but we get 0.9, 0.05 alpha, and then just an N of 20, look how big our Cohen's D is, 0.72, 0.73, really, right? Because it's over here. How big that is. And that's just with 20 people. That shows you the power of Z tests, though, and being able to see the differences between a population parameter and an observed power. Now, I wouldn't be using this effect size calculator. I would be using another one where you put your means and standard deviations in, of course. But this is a good way to show you if you didn't know what your sample size was, but you had N power and alpha, you could get an estimate of what your Cohen's D was, which is great, but you would have to know what your power was. That's the true test. That is the true test. So it's a little bit funky on this. And I've said this in all of the previous videos. You really only want to use this for a priori power analysis. Post-hoc power analysis, fine, maybe. I don't think FX size calculator is really worth it. This is mainly for how many participants do I need to measure to achieve a given effect size at a power, at a standard power and a standard alpha. What do I need to do? That's how you'd use the one sample Z test. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or other feedback, please leave those in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.